Hi, welcome to English Hamster. Are you learning English? Great. Here we learn through stories. They are simple and interesting. You can improve English while learning knowledge. Remember to subscribe, like and comment. Let's get started.
Today, I want to share something very important about learning English. This could be one of the most helpful things you hear in your learning journey. Why? Because I will tell you why many people study English for years but still can't speak it well. Have you ever felt like this? You study grammar, memorize words, learn all the tenses, and do many exercises. But when it's time to speak, your brain stops working. You feel nervous and your sentences are broken. You might even think, why can't I speak after all this studying? I understand that feeling because I went through it. I used to believe that to speak English well, I needed to understand every grammar rule. I thought I had to know all the details about English before I could speak. But the more I studied grammar, the more confused I became. I could do well in writing tests, but when I tried to speak, I couldn't say anything without getting nervous. Then, one day, I decided to stop. I stopped studying grammar completely. It was hard and I was scared. I thought my English would get worse, but then something amazing happened. I started to speak more confidently and naturally. What happened to me can happen to you too. I will explain today how you can speak English with confidence without focusing too much on grammar. I will give you a plan that helped me. If you follow it, you will see a big improvement in your English. Why grammar can hurt your confidence? Let me tell you about a moment when I realized how grammar was stopping me from speaking. I was sitting in a cafe, waiting for a friend. The waiter came up to me and asked, "What would you like to have?" That's it, just a simple question. But do you know what happened? I felt my heart race. My hands became sweaty. I couldn't think of what to say. I wanted to say, "Just a coffee, please." But my brain started thinking about grammar. Should I say, "I will have" or "I would like"? What tense should I use? And by the time I was ready to answer, the waiter had already walked away. I felt embarrassed. This was not the first time this happened. It had been happening for years. Every time I tried to speak, my mind was full of grammar rules. Instead of thinking about the person I was talking to, I was thinking about whether my sentence was perfect. This overthinking destroyed my confidence. Does this sound familiar? I'm sure you've had moments like this. You know the rules and can write well, but when you need to speak, your mind goes blank. You might think, maybe I need to study more grammar. But here's the truth. Studying more grammar won't fix this problem. It might even make it worse. The truth about grammar and speaking. Why is grammar not as important for speaking? Grammar is good for writing, but it's not made for speaking. When you write, you can think, erase, and rewrite. You have time. But when you speak, you only have a few seconds to answer. There's no time to think about every detail of grammar. I learned this the hard way. I spent years thinking that grammar was the key to speaking fluently. I studied all the tenses: present, past, future, perfect, continuous. I did many exercises and memorized a lot of grammar rules. My test scores got better, but when I had to speak with someone, I was too nervous to even try. The truth is, focusing too much on grammar makes you feel like you're never good enough. You always feel like there's more to learn, more rules to master. And this makes you feel stuck. Fluency doesn't come from knowing every grammar rule. Fluency comes from using the English you already know, even if it's not perfect. I'll give you an example. Think about a child learning to speak. They don't wait until they know all the grammar rules before they start talking. They just speak. They make mistakes, but they keep talking, and because they keep talking, they learn quickly. We adults do the opposite. We want everything to be perfect before we speak, so we stay silent. And silence kills fluency. The day I understood this, everything changed for me. I realized that my fear of mistakes was holding me back. It wasn't grammar that was the problem, it was my fear of making mistakes. The key to speaking confidently. English is a language, not an exam. The purpose of language is to communicate, not to show how perfect you are. So here's your first lesson from my journey. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop waiting until you learn every grammar rule before you speak. Don't let grammar control your brain every time you want to speak. Instead, focus on expressing yourself with the words and sentences you already know. Even if it's not perfect, even if you make mistakes, just speak. Every time you speak, you are one step closer to fluency. The decision to stop studying grammar. After the day in the cafe, where I couldn't speak because I was too focused on grammar, I realized I had been wasting my time. I had spent years studying English grammar, thinking that would make me fluent. But when it was time to speak, I was too scared to say anything. So I made a big decision. I packed all my grammar books and notes into a box and put them away. Not because I was angry, but because I knew I had to change how I was learning. I needed to stop treating English like a school subject and start treating it like a real language. This wasn't easy. I had spent so much time with those books, and they felt safe. But I needed to start fresh. I needed to speak without worrying about making mistakes. I had to stop memorizing rules and start focusing on communication. This change changed everything for me. It wasn't just the end of studying grammar, it was the beginning of a new way of learning English. This new way was about building fluency through speaking, listening, and practicing every day. Building confidence through speaking. So, what did I do instead? I began speaking to myself every day. I know this might sound strange, but I started talking to myself in English. I did it in front of the mirror while walking around, even before going to sleep. At first, I started by saying simple things like, "I am brushing my teeth," or "This shirt is blue." It wasn't perfect English, but I didn't care. The important thing was that I was speaking. I kept going, adding more sentences each day. I would ask myself questions like, "What did I do today?" or "What do I want to achieve this week?" I didn't care if I made mistakes. I just kept speaking, and for the first time, I felt free. Speaking to myself helped me remove the fear of being judged. There was no teacher to correct me, and no one was laughing at my mistakes. It was just me, training my mouth to speak and my mind to think in English. Learning through listening and shadowing. Another important part of my journey was listening, but I didn't just listen passively. I started listening carefully, as if my life depended on it. I would watch short videos, interviews, and real conversations. I didn't just listen to the words. I paid attention to how they spoke, the tone, the rhythm, the pauses, and the phrases they used. Then I copied what I heard. I would pause the video, repeat the same sentence out loud, trying to match the pronunciation, speed, and tone. For example, if I heard, "I'm going to grab some coffee. You want anything?" I would stop the video and say, "I'm going to grab some coffee. You want anything?" Again and again until it felt natural. This is called shadowing, and it became my most powerful tool. I wasn't learning grammar, I was learning the rhythm and flow of English. And just like music, once you get the rhythm, it becomes easier to speak naturally. Making mistakes and learning from them. I used to be afraid of making mistakes. But then I realized something important. Fluent people are not the ones who never make mistakes. They are the ones who keep speaking, even if they make mistakes. I decided to stop being afraid of making mistakes. I created a rule for myself: speak even if it's wrong, don't stop, just keep going, and something amazing happened. People didn't laugh at me. They understood me and appreciated my effort. The more I spoke, the better I became. Mistakes were no longer scary. They became my teachers. Every time I said something wrong, I learned something new. Turning my home into an English zone. I also created an English environment at home. I changed my phone's language to English. I put sticky notes on objects around my house with the English words for them. For example, my toothpaste had a note that said toothpaste, and my mirror had a note that said speak English here. I also started doing everyday activities in English. I would say things like, "I'm cooking pasta today," or "let's clean the table." English became a part of my life, not just something I studied. The more I lived with English, the less I feared it. It stopped feeling like a subject and started feeling like a friend. I focused on real sentences, not grammar rules. I stopped studying complex grammar and started learning useful phrases like "I'm planning to," "Do you want to?" and "It's been a while since." Every week, I learned 3-5 new sentences and used them in my daily conversations. Over time, I built a library of natural English, not rules and formulas. Replacing grammar study with speaking practice. I used to spend 30 minutes every day studying grammar, but after I stopped focusing on grammar, I replaced that time with speaking practice. I didn't need books or exercises anymore. I just needed to use my mouth, my voice, and my confidence. I created a simple speaking routine for myself. It was easy to follow and very effective. Every day, I spent 10 minutes talking to myself in the mirror. I would say things like, "What's the plan for today?" or "I feel good today." This helped me practice building sentences without worrying about mistakes. Next, I spent another 10 minutes shadowing English videos. I would repeat what I heard, copying the pronunciation, rhythm, and tone of native speakers. I didn't worry if I understood every word. My goal was to sound more natural, not perfect. After that, I spent 10 minutes speaking out loud about my day. For example, "I went to the market today," or "I had a busy day at work." This was my way of practicing English in a real context. After doing this for a month, I noticed huge improvements. I could speak more naturally, and my confidence grew. I wasn't perfect, but I was speaking confidently and fluently. The power of consistency. The key to fluency isn't just knowledge or motivation. It's consistency. You need to practice every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. This small, daily practice will build your fluency over time. When I started, I didn't have a teacher, no classes, and no partner to talk to, but I didn't need any of that. I created my own routine, and it worked. I didn't need expensive courses or special tools. All I needed was the commitment to practice every day. I also made English a part of my daily life. I started thinking in English. I would talk to myself while cooking, cleaning, or even shopping. For example, "I need to buy some fruit," or "let me get some milk." This constant practice helped me feel comfortable using English in any situation. Creating an English-speaking environment. Another thing I did to help my fluency was to turn my home into an English zone. I put sticky notes on everything, like my fridge, my door, my mirror. Each object had its name in English. This helped me connect English with everyday life. It wasn't just about studying, it became something I lived with. I also started speaking to my phone in English. I used Siri or Google Assistant to ask questions and make requests. It might sound funny, but this was a great way to practice speaking in real-life situations. The importance of speaking first. One of the biggest challenges I faced was the fear of speaking in front of other people. Even though I practiced at home, I was still afraid to speak in public. I would freeze up when I needed to speak in a shop or at a cafe. I knew what I wanted to say, but I was scared of how I would say it. But I realized something important. Fear doesn't go away just because you know more English. In fact, the more you know, the more pressure you put on yourself to speak perfectly. So, I made a decision. I would speak first always. Whenever I entered a room, I would say, "Good morning." When I went to a shop, I would say, "Hi, how are you?" If I made a mistake, I didn't care, I just kept speaking. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. And soon, speaking in public didn't scare me anymore. Using mistakes as a learning tool, many people are afraid to speak because they are scared of making mistakes. But I learned that mistakes are not something to fear. In fact, they are the key to improvement. I created a mistake-friendly zone for myself. This was a time each day when I would speak in English without worrying about making mistakes. I gave myself permission to speak broken English. I didn't focus on grammar or corrections. I just kept speaking. At first, it sounded like this: I go to the market, or I eat apple. But as I kept speaking, my sentences became more natural. I realized that every mistake was a step closer to fluency. Believing in yourself. The most important lesson I learned on this journey was about belief. Fluency is not about grammar rules or perfect pronunciation. It's about believing in yourself and your ability to speak. Once I stopped focusing on perfection and started focusing on expression, my fear began to disappear. I visualized myself speaking confidently. I imagined myself speaking fluently in meetings, at cafes, or on video calls. I saw myself speaking clearly, with confidence. This mental exercise helped me believe that speaking English fluently was possible, and soon it became real. Fluency doesn't come from waiting. I used to think that fluency would come one day, but I realized that there is no one day. There is only today. If you want to speak English fluently, you have to start now. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until your grammar is perfect. Just start speaking with the English you already know. Fluency is not about memorizing more vocabulary or learning more grammar rules. It's about using what you already know and speaking every day. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The power of speaking every day. To build fluency, it's not enough just to study. You need to practice speaking every single day. Fluency is built through action, not just through knowledge. Every time you speak, even if it's not perfect, you get one step closer to becoming fluent. I learned this the hard way. For years, I studied English but rarely spoke it. I would learn new words, memorize grammar rules, but I didn't use the language enough. The biggest change I made was speaking every day, even if no one was around to listen. Speaking by myself at home, in front of a mirror, or even while doing chores helped me improve. It wasn't about waiting for a teacher or a perfect moment. It was about creating the habit of speaking. Practicing in public. Speaking English in public used to scare me, but I found a way to overcome this fear. I started speaking English even when no one was listening. For example, when I was walking in the park, I would talk to myself about what I saw. There's a dog playing with a ball. I see a man jogging. I didn't care if people heard me. This practice helped me get used to speaking in public, and over time, I became less afraid of speaking in front of others. It's important to make speaking a part of your everyday life. You don't need to wait for a conversation partner to start. Speak when you're by yourself. Speak when you're doing routine tasks. Speak even if it's just a few words. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Making mistakes with confidence. As I continued to practice, I became more comfortable with making mistakes. In fact, I started to see mistakes as part of the learning process. They didn't mean I was bad at English. They meant I was improving. When I made a mistake, I didn't get upset. Instead, I tried to learn from it. I asked myself, what did I say wrong? How can I say it better next time? Every mistake became an opportunity to grow. I made sure to create an environment where mistakes were okay. I gave myself permission to speak even if my grammar wasn't perfect. I didn't worry about being judged by others. And guess what? People didn't laugh at me. They understood me and appreciated that I was trying. This attitude helped me speak more freely and confidently. Becoming comfortable with silence. One of the best habits I built was training my brain to think in English. I practiced thinking in English while doing everyday activities. For example, while making breakfast, I would think, I'm going to fry some eggs. The toast is ready. I didn't speak out loud, but I would create sentences in my mind. This helped me get used to the language without needing to speak every time. It allowed my brain to process English more naturally. I also practiced silent conversations in my head. I would imagine a situation, like ordering food at a restaurant, and practice what I would say. This helped me feel ready when I had to speak in real-life situations. The more I practiced silently, the more my speaking improved. Shadowing and mimicking native speakers. One of the most powerful tools I used was shadowing. This is when you listen to a native speaker and try to mimic what they say. I would choose short clips from movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos. I would listen to a sentence, then pause and repeat it out loud, trying to copy the speaker's rhythm, pronunciation, and tone. At first, it felt difficult, but with practice, it became easier. I would repeat the sentences multiple times, focusing on getting the sound and rhythm just right. This helped me sound more like a native speaker, even though I wasn't perfect. And most importantly, it helped me become more comfortable speaking English naturally. Building a real-life English environment. Another thing I did to improve was to create an environment where I was constantly surrounded by English. I changed the language on my phone, set up sticky notes around the house with English words, and listened to English podcasts. I even spoke to my phone in English. This constant exposure to the language helped me feel more confident and familiar with it. The key to this approach is consistency. You don't need to go to an English-speaking country to learn. You can make English a part of your life right where you are. Just start using it every day in any way you can. The more you use English, the more natural it will feel. The importance of visualizing success. One habit that helped me a lot was visualization. Every morning, before I started my day, I would close my eyes for a couple of minutes and imagine myself speaking English confidently. I imagined talking in meetings, in cafes, or on video calls. I saw myself speaking clearly, with people listening and smiling. Visualization is powerful because your brain doesn't always know the difference between something you imagine and something that happens in real life. By visualizing success every day, I started to believe in it more and more. I began to think, yes, I can speak English confidently. and this belief made a big difference in how I spoke in real situations. The more I imagined myself speaking fluently, the more my confidence grew. Visualization gave me the mental strength to speak in English without fear. It made me believe that speaking was possible, even when I didn't feel completely ready. Fluency is about connection, not perfection. Another important realization I had was that fluency is not about being perfect. It's about connection. English is a tool for communication, not for impressing others with perfect grammar. People care more about understanding you and connecting with you than they do about your accent or grammar mistakes. So I stopped focusing on being perfect. I started focusing on connecting with people, expressing my thoughts and feelings, and sharing ideas. Even if my English wasn't perfect, I knew I could still communicate. And that made me feel free. When I stopped worrying about mistakes, I became more relaxed and confident. My conversations became more natural, and I was able to focus on the meaning of what I was saying, rather than getting stuck on grammar rules. Building fluency through consistent action. The key to building fluency is consistent action. It's about speaking every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. I created a daily routine that included speaking, listening, and thinking in English. It didn't matter if I had no one to speak with. I spoke to myself, practiced with videos, and used English in my daily life. After doing this for a few weeks, I started to notice changes. I felt more comfortable speaking, and I was able to express myself more easily. I no longer needed to translate from my native language. English started to come more naturally to me. The more I practiced, the more I started to think in English, and the less I depended on grammar rules. Speaking in English became a habit. I stopped thinking about every word I said and just let the language flow. This shift in mindset made a huge difference in my fluency. The power of speaking even with mistakes. Even now, I still make mistakes, and that's okay. I don't expect to speak perfectly every time, but I know that speaking, even with mistakes, is the way to improve. Every mistake is a chance to learn, and the more I speak, the more I grow. I no longer worry about sounding wrong. Instead, I focus on the message I want to communicate. I've learned that it's okay to be imperfect. It's better to speak and make mistakes than to stay silent and never improve. Speaking every day is the key. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my journey, it's this: speak every day. It doesn't matter if your English isn't perfect. The more you speak, the more confident and fluent you'll become. Create a routine that works for you. Speak to yourself, use English in your daily life, and practice speaking out loud. You don't need a teacher, expensive courses, or perfect grammar to become fluent. All you need is the courage to speak and the commitment to practice every day. If you can do that, you will become fluent. It's not a question of if, but when. Becoming fluent, the decision to speak, not wait. One of the most important lessons I learned is that fluency is not something that happens by waiting for the right time or by trying to be perfect. Fluency begins the moment you decide to speak, even if your English isn't perfect. It's not about grammar, vocabulary, or accent. It's about the decision to communicate. I used to wait for the perfect moment to speak. I thought, maybe tomorrow I will be more confident, maybe next week I'll be better. But I realized that there is no perfect time. You must start now. You have everything you need to speak, you just have to decide to use it. The power of daily practice. When I started speaking every day, my progress began to snowball. At first, I didn't feel confident. I made mistakes. I stuttered. But as I continued practicing, I saw improvement. Each day was a step closer to fluency. And after a while, I no longer felt afraid to speak. Speaking became easier, more natural, and less stressful. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You are ready right now. Fluency comes from using the English you already know and speaking it regularly. The more you speak, the better you get. Don't wait for perfect grammar. Don't wait for perfect pronunciation. Speak with what you have now, and you will improve. You are the key to your own fluency. The final truth I want to share with you is this: you are the key to your fluency. It's not your teacher, your environment, or the courses you take. It's you. You decide when to speak, you decide how much to practice, and you decide when to stop waiting and start acting. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you will never speak. But if you start speaking now, even if it's not perfect, you will improve. Fluency doesn't come from studying grammar rules or memorizing vocabulary. It comes from speaking, listening, and practicing every day. Fluency is a decision, not a goal. Fluency is not a goal that you achieve after studying for years. It's a decision that you make every day. You decide to speak, even if it's not perfect. You decide to practice, even if you make mistakes. You decide to keep going, even when it feels difficult. So today, make the decision to speak English. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Just start speaking and keep going. Fluency will come as long as you make the decision to practice every day. Your English journey starts now. This is the moment when you stop waiting and start speaking. Your English journey is in your hands. You have everything you need to be fluent. All you need is the courage to speak and the commitment to practice every day. Remember, fluency is not about being perfect. It's about connecting with others and using the language to express yourself. You don't need perfect grammar or a perfect accent. You just need to speak with confidence and belief in yourself. You are ready. Don't let fear hold you back. Speak today, speak tomorrow, and keep speaking until fluency becomes natural to you. Your voice matters, and your fluency is yours to build. So, speak, grow, and become the confident English speaker you've always wanted to be.
Hey, if you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create more English videos for you. Thank you. See you next time. Bye.